Hey guys, welcome back to Nadir Audio. Today we're going to be taking a look at the FiiO Q1 Mark II portable DAC amp. Alright, so I didn't really get into sort of serious dedicated listening with headphones until fairly recently. I've been an audiophile for many years, but mostly focused on stereo systems and speakers. And it wasn't until I put together this shit stack over here with the Modi 3 DAC and Valley 2 headphone amp that I really kind of got into the headphone thing. I did make a video about that, so I'll include a link to it in the description below. But, you know, once I started really listening with this thing a lot, I had a tendency to just sort of take it around the house with me wherever I wanted to listen to headphones, you know, in my office, or if I'm just listening to my laptop in the living room. You know, I just kind of had this plugged into a power strip and would carry it along with me, and it's a little unwieldy, but you know, it's not so bad when you're not leaving home, especially right now while we're all sheltering in place. But that, you know, it's a little unwieldy, and then also I started using the Modi 3 as the DAC in the stereo that I use for recording music. So I have a Focusrite audio interface that I use to record, and I was previously also using that as the DAC, but the Modi 3 actually sounds a lot better as a DAC. And so once I had that hooked up in here, I didn't really want to start carrying it around because it's just sort of a pain to unplug everything. So that's when I started thinking, well, it would be really nice to have a portable DAC amp. And so I, you know, looked online, I watched a lot of videos, read a lot of reviews, looked at a lot of things. There's tons of options available right now. So to narrow it down a little bit, I did decide to only include stuff at, you know, below $100. So that narrowed things down a lot. You know, I do think it's really interesting how you can get some pretty decent gear these days for very little money. So I have a playlist where I'm going to be including stuff in that price range, and I'll include the FiiO here. And there are actually some other options in that range, some of them also including Bluetooth. I wasn't too concerned about Bluetooth because I'm not really using this as a way to listen to headphones, you know, with my phone while I'm walking around or anything like that. It's not something I do very much, so I wasn't too worried about the Bluetooth part of it. So I ended up settling on the FiiO Q1 Mark II here. So just a real brief overview of the unit itself. It's pretty simple. We just got a couple of headphones out. We have the 3.5mm out, and then we have a 2.5mm balanced. I'm not currently doing any balanced at the moment, but I do plan to in the future, so I think it's pretty cool that it has that built in. We've got our 3.5mm line in out, and then we just have the volume knob, which also functions as an on-off switch. So if you turn it all the way to the left here, that will turn the unit off. You get a nice little click, and when you turn it back on, then the LED comes on. So this LED, there's actually two LED lights in there. One is the blue that you see now. There also is a red LED in there. So when you first plug this thing in, when you buy it, it needs to charge. So while it's charging, the red LED will come on. And if you turn it on and use it, which you can do while it's charging, then the blue and the red comes on, which gives this little bar here sort of a pink glow. But then once it's fully charged, then we just get the blue. And then on the back here, we have our you know, micro USB in. And then we have a gain, there's a low and high gain, which is kind of nice. And then there is a bass boost, which for the most part I'm leaving off, but it is available. And that's it. You know, it's a real simple little device, but it's all metal. It has a very nice feel to it. Feels solid, feels well made, especially for the price. So yeah, that's works pretty well. So now it does come with this lightning to USB cable, and I have tested it out with my iPhone and with my iPad, and it works great. But I've mostly been using it with my laptops here. I've got a ThinkPad in the other room, and then I've got this MacBook Pro that I mostly use for listening to music and recording music. And it worked right out of the box with both of them. I didn't have to install drivers on the Windows machine either. It just worked, so that was pretty cool. It does come with this little rubber mat, and I think this is used to, so you can put your phone next to it, and it comes with some actually these little sort of rubber bands that you can use to to wrap it all together. That's not something I'm going to be using too much, but this actually is a nice little mat, and it's kind of nice when I'm using my MacBook Pro in the other room because it's also got sort of an aluminum metal surface, and this has sort of a slightly rough metal surface. It's maybe aluminum as well, and so they would scratch if they touch directly. So this is a nice way to kind of keep it on there so that it doesn't scratch and it doesn't move, and that works out really well for listening in the other room. You know, I spent several days just listening to a lot of music with this in the other room, and I actually, you know, it's very enjoyable to listen to, and it is a big step up from the direct out on my laptops or my phone or my iPad. Yeah, I actually was pleasantly surprised. It sounds better, even a little better than I was expecting. But for the last couple of days, I've actually sort of been doing some A/B listening with some of the other ones that I have. So of course I got my shit stack over here, and the last couple of days I've taken my Sprout 100 from the other side of the room where it's in my main stereo, and just using it as a headphone, amp, and DAC just to be able to do comparisons. And done several hours of A/B comparisons this weekend with the just listening to all sorts of music and stuff, and I have to say, you know, all three of these, you know, are a big step up from just direct out on whatever your source you're listening to, but they do all have very distinct and different sound. Now I am treating these, including the shit stack, as just a unit, so I'm just treating them as three separate DAC amps. In future videos, we'll be doing, you know, DAC comparisons and amp comparisons, but in this one, it's just kind of a broad strokes. How do these three solutions work? So I'd say, you know, in comparison, it's not quite at the level, I think, of these two. So with the shit stack, you know, we do have the tube hybrid amp, so you get that sort of nice tube sound, which I am a fan of, and you get some spaciousness with that, and just sort of that, you know, the tube coloration, which I think sounds really good with a lot of different stuff. Now the Sprout is really just big on detail. It's a very resolving amplifier compared to a lot of my other stuff, so you get a lot of detail, especially in the high end. Now, you know, some people might find it maybe a little analytical, or you know, might get listener fatigue, but it does come with a bass boost, which can be defeated, but it is on by default, and I find that with the bass boost on, it's a kind of a more balanced listening experience for me. So I kind of like it, just sort of adds that warmth, so you don't get the fatigue, but you still have the detail, and you get a great sound stage. And you know, with the placement of the instruments, you can really pick that up with this, which is fun, especially if you're listening to, you know, like a jazz quartet or something where you're kind of visualizing the performers on stage. But then with this, it's, you know, it is a little bit more analytical sound. So if you're really into the mid-range, you know, very vocal focused music, or if you're super into the tone of, you know, maybe horns and jazz and that sort of stuff, this is going to be, maybe you would consider it to be a slightly more sterile sound, whereas this solution really excels at that kind of stuff. So vocals, horns, this is not really an A curve type of setup, but if you're into the A curve thing, I think you might like the way that the mid-range sounds with this solution. So the FiiO, in comparison, if you're going directly from one of these to this, this does sound a tiny bit, you know, just maybe a little bit flatter. You know, it's neutral. I think all of these solutions are fairly neutral, but you don't get quite as much of that spaciousness or the sound stage. It's not quite as analytical as the Sprout, so you do get back a little bit of that sort of tone that you might like in the mid-range levels. But it just sounds, you know, for lack of a better term, maybe slightly less audiophile, but only when you're just doing these direct comparisons, you know, just from one to the other. But I found in listening to all three of these that, you know, as I was listening to my music collection, you know, I would sometimes just all of a sudden just really get into a particular track, and I'd almost kind of forget, you know, which one I was listening to. I'd say what I would consider to be the engagement level is like, how much am I enjoying the music? Am I tapping my toes? Do I want to listen to all the way to the end? I don't want to jump around. I don't want to switch A to B. All three of these solutions can do that. And certainly listening in the living room, I find this very enjoyable. So it's really, if I had to pick one of these three solutions as being the only headphone solution I would, listen to from now on, it would be a tough decision. I probably would end up with the shit stack, but it would be pretty close. And I think both of these would come before the FiiO. But keep in mind, the FiiO is only $99. This stack you're looking for both of them about $250. And then, of course, the Sprout's about $600. Now, the Sprout does a lot more than just a DAC and a headphone amp. But it is still, a more expensive device. So I think certainly for the price, but also just as a general DAC amp, I think this is a really good solution, and I'm actually really happy with it. So I should mention all the listening that I've been doing for the last 2 days at least. I've just been sort of focusing on these HIFIMAN HE-35Xs. I did also make a video on these. I'll link to that in the description below as well. I like these a lot. I do have other headphones that I might like better for a particular recording, but these are probably the most versatile headphones I have right now because I listen to a lot of different music across a lot of different genres. And I think these actually do pretty well with all of those. So yeah, if you want to learn more about that, definitely check out my other video. But I think that these headphones actually work very well with all three of these, but also very well with the FiiO. So if you're looking for an inexpensive overall solution, for $99 for this, and actually I got these HIFIMANs for only $75. And I think they're still available from drop.com for that price. Yeah, $175. It's kind of amazing you can get something that sounds that good. Now I will mention, everything I'm listening to, I'm just listening in Apple Music, but my entire library for the most part are files that I imported from CDs as Apple lossless. So Apple lossless format. So they're all, good sounding. It's not high res, but all really good sounding stuff. I did listen to a little bit on YouTube, and I do have a handful of things that are a little bit more compressed and a little less hi-fi. I think with that sort of harsher stuff, the FiiO almost actually sounds better with that kind of stuff than these two. These two are a little bit more revealing. Not going to be as fun to listen to recordings that are not quite as good, whereas I think that the FiiO actually kind of maybe is a good solution for that. If you're listening to a lot of compressed stuff, that might be a good solution as well. But overall, I think it's a great little portable DAC amp. I would definitely recommend it, and that's what I'm going to be using for the time being. So we are going to be looking in the future. I'm going to be we're going to be exploring a lot of stuff, looking at other headphones, branching out to different types of headphones. We'll be looking at other DACs, other amps in the future, including portable solutions. So that's something to look out for. So this is not, we're not going to stop here, but I did want to just make a video about this and tell you guys I am very happy with it. And this is what I'm going to be listening to when I'm out in the living room, listening to my laptop for sure. So yeah, I think that's it for this one, guys. Thanks for tuning in. I will see you all in the next video.